to solve. And well, now it's time to delve into the games and see how the best senior players in the world are playing chess nowadays. I mentioned also actually on social media that these senior players actually are legends in their own name, because well, you have players like Michael Adams, John Nunn, Aleksandar Shabalov, Vladimir Akopyan. All these players have been elite players for many years, and well, even if they have a certain age nowadays, they say age is just a number. So I expect some really good quality games here in Hotel Izgref on the Ohrid Lake in North Macedonia. So let's take an overview of the matches, and I will give a brief overview of all the games that are on the live broadcast, and then I will concentrate on some of the more interesting matches so we can analyze them in greater depth. So the first match I will also consult here on my computer, actually the chess results, because it's easier for me to follow the pairings. We have on board one, we have under seniors over 50. We have the match Canada against USA, and from the board composition we see that the best player of the US, Akopyan, is not playing, but we still have a very strong team, and on board one we have Plotkin against Shabalov, then we have Kaidanov against Baron, Findlay against Elvest, and Novikov against Doherty. So on board one we have the game Plotkin-Shabalov, where we can see, let's take it from the beginning, e4, g6. We see Aleksandar Shabalov going for the modern, which is a very popular choice when strong players want to beat weak ones, because it just leads to some unbalanced positions, non-contact piece play from the beginning, which gives the titled player, or at least the stronger player, something that to play with. Yeah. So e4, g6, d4, bishop g7, knight c3, c6. Okay, this is a mixture of the Caro-Kann and the Pirc and the modern. The idea obviously being d5 or d6, depending what white plays. So it's a kind of a flexible setup. So knight f3, d5, and now bishop e2. Normally what's considered best here is the move h3, preventing black's bishop g4. Yeah, so it's considered as the best possible move, well, for white. But bishop e2, oops, sorry about this. So, okay, bishop e2 has been played by white, and now bishop g4. This was black's idea. Yeah, the idea is, okay, bishop e3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight h6, and you can see now one of the ideas of black setup, which is a combination of the Caro-Kann and the Pirc. So most likely black will give up the light squared bishop, yeah, and then establish some strong presence on the light squares with e6. The knight will come to f5, the other knight will come maybe to d7, maybe b6 later on, depending, yeah, on circumstances. So knight g3, knight d7, and h3. And now black is thinking, I'm not sure he's actually thinking, because taking on f3 is the only plausible move here for black. So maybe there is some issue with the translation, not sure. Let's move on to the next game, which is Kaidanov Baron. We have a Dutch defense, d4, f5, bishop f4. Yeah, one of those systems that don't require too much knowledge or preparation to play against the Dutch. Just white develops sort of normally. Yeah, knight f6, e3, g6, and h4. This is a common reaction for white against the Dutch, introducing these h5 ideas, and then even a sacrifice on h5. So h5, knight h5, rook h5, for example. Yeah. So h6, the idea is to meet h5 with g5. So queen f3, quite an aggressive setup. White is choosing, okay, he'll develop the knight, yeah, and then castle long, and then seek either to open the center or open the king side. So d6, knight c3, bishop g7, queen g3, targeting the pawn on g6. Yeah, king f7. Now long castle and knight h5. So black goes after the bishop. Queen f3 takes on f4, queen takes f4, bishop f6. Okay, probably just solidifying something on the dark squares, freeing maybe g7 for the king, but still neglecting the development to a certain extent. So knight f3, knight c6, queen g3, getting away from e5, so e5, d5, knight e5. And okay, white's move now. It's a playable position for both sides. White's king is safer, but black has the bishops. So we will see what's going on here. Yeah, I will also check perhaps how things are going on the YouTube channel. Just checking for. I mean, if you have any questions or comments, please write in chat on the official YouTube channel. It's the FIDE Chess YouTube channel where the official stream is going. So post your questions there, and I'll be checking them occasionally, and I will try to answer. So okay, next one, Findlay against Elvest. Again, we have a modern e4 g6. It's as if the Americans have prepared collectively for this match. d4, bishop g7, knight f3, d6. But the difference here being that Elvest goes for the d6, the proper modern, and not c6, which is actually the name being the Gurgenidze system. So d6, this is really modern territory. Bishop e2, and now knight d7. Black could have transposed to Pirc with knight f6, and after knight c3 we have the Pirc. But instead he goes for more modern treatment. The idea is to push e5 before developing the knight on f6. So knight c3, e5, short castle, and knight gf6. So now we have a period where black has managed to push e5 early on. Normally white either prevents it or is postponed. But okay, just a interesting early development. Yeah? So d5. This is a common reaction for white when facing this central attention. And here we see, for example, one drawback of black's setup, because normally black would like to take with a knight, with a piece on e5. Yeah, but now after knight e5, d5, white has the option to exchange queens and rob black of the right to castle. Now I'm not sure how good this is, but it's an extra option that white has here. Whereas in the normal periods, black would have castled here and recaptured on d8 with the rook with no problems whatsoever. But now with the king in the center, I don't know if maybe it's also okay for black. I don't know, maybe bishop c4, let's say attacking f7, and now okay, maybe if king e7, maybe there is some idea with b3, okay, and harassing the king. Oops, sorry, bishop e3, and then harassing the king. So maybe it's a bit unpleasant. One way or another, Elvest after d5, okay, chose to take with a pawn to avoid any sort of complications, and now bishop e3, short castle, and now knight d2. It's okay, a bit maybe off topic, but not entirely. I recently read a good book, chess book, a rarity for me lately, but I somehow managed because I happen to know the author pretty well, and the author is Sergei Tivyakov, and he recently wrote this book, Rock Solid Chess, where he basically shares his experience and understanding of certain types of positions. And one of these types of positions was this symmetrical position that arises from the Pirc and also some other openings. And in fact, it was very instructive for me, first of all, to read his thoughts, and second, to follow his analysis of the games. And he outlined actually a very good setup here for white in these structures. So let's just put one more move on the board, queen e7, and now white actually goes astray from Tivyakov's proposed setup. The knight does not really belong to b3, and actually in these structures the knight belongs to c4. Yeah, and then the ideal setup according to Tivyakov, of course, white plays on the queen side, so something like, let's say, a4, a5, as far as possible, trying to push the pawn. the knight on c3 will likely be limited by c6, and that means that it will be rerouted to d2, so knight b1 and then to d2. In order the pawn on e4 not to hang, white plays f3, and then with the knight on d2, let's say it goes further c3, b4, and you can see all his pieces are pointing towards the queen side. And Tivyakov actually has won quite a few games here, more or less on autopilot. And there was also one game by Karpov against Kurt Hansen analyzed in the book, and it really seems like, okay, you look at these games and you get the impression that this is like almost like a forced win for white. It's a bit unfortunate that Findlay did not go for this setup, because it would have been interesting to see how world-class player like Elvest would deal with it. But okay, I'm just sharing the this setup, which I kind of recently got to know a bit more deeply. So white went knight b3. Knight really does not really belong there. So c6, a4, a5, and now queen d2. So you see why the knight doesn't belong there, because because on b3 it really has no prospects. It will never go to c5, and if it doesn't go to c5, where does it go? So and from c4 it targets b6, d6, e5. Yeah, so it's a much better piece there. So I think this misplaced knight on b3 gives black an acceptable version of the Pirts. So let's move on to the next game, Novikov against Doherty. So here we had a Benko gambit, c4, c5, d5. Okay, sorry, not Benko. No, no Benko, just a delayed Benoni. So knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, knight f3, castles, bishop e2, e6, and short castle. Okay, I'll give away a small secret. I think that this position will feature in my next chessable course, based on 1d4 for white. And in order to kind of simplify things for the first player, I here actually again I say most likely will recommend the capture d takes e6, which gives the game a totally different character, but it has the practical advantage of not allowing black to transpose to his desired either Benoni, or even black can play here e5 and transpose to some sort of a King's Indian. So by taking en passant, white actually cuts off all these options and steers the game towards different pawn structure and different type of play. So black played e6, white castled, and after rook e8, queen c2, e takes d5, c takes d5, we have a transposition to the Benoni. Okay, there seem to be some issues with the they're reconnected now, so we had some issues, but now should be okay. So okay, just to repeat what I said, after e6, short castle, rook e8, queen c2, e takes d5, c d5, we have this Benoni, where normally the queen is still on d1, but the knight is on d2. So white chose an alternative way to defend the pawn on e4. And as far as I remember from looking at the Benoni long time ago, this is not optimal for white, knight d2 being the better move. So in a way you could say that black kind of tricked white into let's say a not so challenging subline, because normally here white would play knight d2, but then maybe black can try to postpone the capture on d5, maybe play knight a6 and so on, some sort of, like I said, delayed Benoni. But okay, that's queen c2, we have this knight a6, bishop b5. Okay, possible I guess, but still strange, because normally the exchange of the light squared bishop for black is something desirable for black in the Benoni. But now we had some sort of a change in the game, because maybe, just maybe, this is not the game Novikov Doherty that we are looking at, because now I just noticed that the translation on Leach has just changed, and in fact it's not a Benoni at all. So I will take you back to move 1, and let's say go d4, knight f6, c4, e6, so no c5, and these are the moves I actually get now from Lee chess. So like I mentioned, there were technical problems, and the technical problems were actually first of all, some of the names were wrong. Names that appeared in the live translation were not actually the players playing in the playing hall, and second, the moves on the boards did not correspond to the moves I was getting on the live translation. So I will just quickly check if they have, for example, let me just check the Adams game. That okay, it seems that they have corrected this now, because I noticed some of the games were wrong, but now okay, Adams' game is correct, and let's say Arkel's game also correct. Okay, so hopefully all this has been resolved. Let's just check if we the first two games that we looked at, they're okay, they are correct. Okay, so we are going to the fourth game of the first match, Novikov Doherty, and hopefully we have overcome the main technical problem. So let's see what happened actually in the game Novikov Doherty. I have no idea who played the delayed Benoni then. So knight f3, avoiding the Nimzo, d5, knight c3, bishop b4. There goes in very, very popular opening. I think its popularity started, or let's say ballooned, after the fact that Magnus Carlsen used it, or actually had it prepared for one of his World Championship matches, and ever since then it's on the repertoire of every elite player. So queen f4 check, one of the many options white has in the Rogozin, forcing knight c6, e3 short castle, bishop d2, preventing doubling of the pawns, a6, queen c2, queen drops back to avoid any bishop d7 or b5 ideas. Rook e8, bishop d3, d takes e4, bishop takes c4, bishop d6. In the Rogozin, this is the normal reaction for black. The idea is, of course, to push e5 and solve the problem of the light squared bishop, which is the main problem for black in all these, or in the vast majority of the queen's pawns openings. So a3, h6, preparatory moves, both sides, short castle, e5, and h3. So typical Rogozin position. Both players played a3, h3, a6, h6, covering these squares, and now black goes for e4. Honestly, I'm not so sure if this is theory or not, because instead of e4, black could have also kept the tension with a move like bishop d7, let's say. But by the fact that the players are moving pretty fast, it seems that maybe there is some sort of theory. e4, knight h2. Hard to say here, like what's like who benefits from this. Normally, if after pushing e4, black will try to create some sort of kingside attack. Let's say bishop f5, maybe queen d7, maybe sack something on h3, and so on. But the problem here is, of course, he must be very careful about this e4 pawn, and white's playing the center based on d5 or maybe knight d5 and so on. The knight on h2 will be rerouted from via f1, so the rook will move somewhere, e1, c1, d1, yeah, and then knight f1, maybe even knight g3, putting pressure on e4, and not fearing really bishop g3, f takes g3, because that will open the f file and solidify white's kingside structure. So this is white's plan, and let's see how black will react to this. Let's move on to the next match, England 1 against England 3. So Michael Adams on board 1. I was really surprised when I saw the moves from the Rogozin in that game, but as we saw, it was mixed up with the Novikov game. But now the moves are okay. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight f6. The Berlin, ever present, ever popular. Queen e2 by Adams. So it's a characteristic of Michael Adams to at least not seem ambitious in the opening and then outplay his opponents. But of course, as an elite player, He has a really well developed and analyzed opening repertoire. So even when he plays a sideline, let's say like Queen E2, which is known as the whirl attack, which was okay. Let's see, take a short trip in history. I think the whirl attack had its best time in the history of chess when it was used by another Englishman, Nigel Short, in his match against Anatoly Karpov. With great success, Short won, I think, 1 or 2 games with it, and as we know, convincingly beat Karpov in what was probably Short's biggest success. He fared less well against Kasparov, but that's another story. So anyway, Adams plays Queen E2, the whirl attack, and it's a bit different than when it's employed later. For example, A4, A6, Bishop A4, Knight F6, Queen E2, or even short castle and then Queen E2. Because here, as in the Berlin, is common also against D3, Black can develop the bishop on C5. Yeah. So C3, short castle, D3. So in a way, we have a D3 anti-Berlin with the Queen on E2, which I think soon enough transposes to the normal lines. So D5, yeah, let's see. Bishop G5, D takes E4, D takes E4, Queen E7, Knight D2, and Knight B8. Yeah, this is theory. But I think the theory is actually with the bishop on C1 and short castle for white. So here, okay, the bishop is on G5, but yeah, normally this pin is annoying for black in these structures because it's not easy to get rid of, whereas playing H6, G5 just weakens the king side, and this can be problematic long term. So I would say Adams managed to create some sort of similar but not exactly the same position as let's say normal theory. So let's see how it goes. Short castle A5. This is a normal move for black, preventing some expansion on the queen side. So rook FD1, H6, bishop H4, B6. Okay, not strictly necessary B6, but okay. So knight F1. White just plays classically along the normal Ruy Lopez lines. The queen goes, the knight can go to E3 or G3 and then to F5, yeah, maybe, or even D5, depending on circumstances. So C6, it's a must for black to control the D5 square. Bishop draws back to A4, and now rook E8. Okay, strengthening the pawn on E5. B6 allows black to go bishop A6, but for now doesn't seem to achieve so much because the queen will move likely to C2, I guess. Yeah. And then the bishop, yeah, it's looking down this relatively open diagonal, but not quite sure what it's doing. But on the other hand, it's not clear where to develop the bishop in the first place, so maybe it's not such a bad idea. Black will likely play knight d7, but that drops the pawn on c6, so he needs to kind of solve this issue with the pawn on c7 in order to connect the knights and get rid of the pin, if possible. So I would say a typical Adams game where some, okay, h3 by white, so some nagging problems for black. But nagging problems for black are just common occurrence in the Ruy Lopez, so nothing new there. Let's move on to the next game. And I think this game is not exactly right. No, I don't think this is right, because I think I noticed this in the playing hall and it was not a Queen's Gambit accepted. I think it was a Berlin, but so I'm not sure about this. We'll skip. Let's go to Keith's game. This one I checked in the playing hall and I know it's correct. So it was a Queen's Gambit decline. C4 is okay. D4, knight F6, knight F, D4, D5, knight F, knight F6, C4, E6, knight C3. What's going on? So takes, knight C3, A6. Yeah, A6 is a popular move in the Queen's Gambit decline. It covers the B5 square, and this allows for the development of the bishop on D6, not fearing knight B5, and also allows in some lines for black to be more active in the center by pushing C5. So it's a popular choice. Yeah, bishop G5, bishop E6. covering the d5 pawn. e3, knight bd7, bishop d3, bishop d6, okay, short castle c6, rook b1. This actually is quite an interesting game because Keith Arkell is a famous practitioner of the Carlsbad structure with white. He just loves these structures and is very good at playing them. So it will be interesting to see how he treats these positions. Rook b1 in a way prepares a minority attack, but that will take some time to kind of get going because black is already controlling the b5 square quite well, and obviously there are also known ways to counter the minority attack, where the black plays b5 and then plants a knight on c4, let's say knight b6, knight c4, or meets b5 with c5. Okay, so it's not like it's that the attack will win the game by itself, but it's a flexible move, just rook b1, yeah. So queen c7, bishop h4, intending bishop g3 and exchange the dark squared bishops because the bishop on d6 is quite active. Bishop g4, pin on the knight on f3, and bishop g3, okay, short castle, and bishop d6. There was actually another interesting idea that I again recently kind of remembered. Was a plan in the Carlsbad introduced by none other than Alpha Zero, and the plan consisted in fact it was introduced in the match against Stockfish, and Stockfish was playing this pin bishop g4 in the Carlsbad, and what Alpha Zero did was just move the queen away. It was normally putting it on b3 to attack b7, but here that doesn't make sense. Let's just put it on, let's say, on c2, and just allow this capture on f3. Yeah. Now let's make again a random move. Let's say rook here, then exchange the bishops. Yeah. And in this position, it just was very successful, creating an attack on the g file and on the king side. So the plan was rook g1, double on the g file, then go f4, get the queen to f3 and h3, targeting h7, double the rooks on the g file, and just win the game. Some great games from that match, you can look it up. It was played in 2018. So this plan was really, in a way, I would say, novel for the Carlsbad structure, and it was nicely explained in the really great book, Game Changer, by Matthew Sadler and Natasha Regan. So going back, Keith doesn't go for this. He takes on d6, queen d6, and now h3, bishop h5, and now he goes for g4. Normally Keith doesn't play like this, but maybe he was annoyed by the pin, didn't want to go bishop e2, goes g4. Okay, bishop g6, knight h4, exchanging of the bishops, g6, and now knight g2, rook fe8, and knight f4. So Keith likes to maneuver his knight to d3 in the Carlsbad, but now it's I think not entirely to his liking, because this weakened king, I don't think he likes this, because normally he likes a safe king where he and a safe structure where he can just push on the, let's say, on the queen side and achieve the minority attack and play on. But with this structure, well, I'm not so sure. So let's move on to the last one, which is a game between Nigel Davis and Brian Hewson, and actually the Benoni we saw in the game Novikov Doherty is actually from this game. So we will quickly skip the opening, which everything applies what I said there. So Bish e6, short castle, rook e8, and now queen c2, which, like I said, knight d2 is normally played, but okay, we'll skip that. Bishop b5, again, not entirely sure that this is a good exchange for white. Rook e1, knight b4, queen b1, takes, is c4. It looks like a great Benoni for black. He already activated his queen side. Knight d3 is a threat, and a6 b5 coming, and maybe knight d7, then knight c5 or e5, and then landing on d3. Whereas white is nowhere near pushing through e5 or or getting any play in the center. So this looks like a great opening for black already. Knight drops back to c3, knight d3, rook e2, b5, a3, a5. Okay, this looks just great for black. Just b4 is coming and maybe queen b6 or something. Okay, this just looks tremendous. It's funny that in the Benoni actually, as black, you can win in an almost automatic way if white is passive and doesn't create anything serious in the central king side. Then black just pushes the pawns on the queen side and the majority just wins the game. And this appears to be that kind of a game. We will see. So let's move on to the third match, which is England and let's see. Okay, just checking the comments. Kevin Winter, black is strategically winning. Yeah, I would say so. Nigel Davis seems to be kind of already having a great position. Okay, just checking the. Okay, so Adams with Kramnik with this line in the World Blitz. Okay, not bad. Arkel, he played these positions. For Keith, it doesn't really matter whether he has a knight on f3 or not in the calls, but he doesn't really care. Vast experience, many won games. It's like this. Keith. I plan to have him on the broadcast at some point. I asked him during lunch today. He wasn't entirely sure, but I hope I convince him to come over one day. The Benoni, this looks like a great Benoni for black. We said that, So I want to check the next match, which is England women against Italy. So let's check that one. So we have Susan Arkel against Alberto David. We have Caro Khan here. So Alberto David, he is a seasoned grandmaster, very strong. He's originally from Luxembourg, but has been representing Italy for a very long time. So d4, d5, knight d2, takes, knight f6, the popular line. It's funny that out of the three main lines, black has here bishop f5, the so-called Capablanca variation, and knight d7, the floor Smyslov variation made popular also by Karpov. These have been the main lines for decades, and then all of a sudden in the 21st century the move knight f6, which has always been considered somewhat dubious, took over the status of, well, if not a main line, at least a line on par with the two other well-established moves. Well, here the discovery was that after knight f6, e takes f6, c3, bishop d6, bishop d3, short castle, knight e2, rook 8, queen c2, h5. This was the sort of revelation that black can, I would say, under the influence of alpha 0, pushing the h pawn, black can actually advance this pawn and try to disturb the harmony of white's king side. And it turned out that black's position is actually quite solid, even though it has these doubled pawns, but they control some central squares, and it's not so easy for white to do something with his majority. In the past, it was considered, okay, this is simple, just exchange pieces, push the pawns, but modern practice shows that this is not exactly that simple. So short castle, bishop e3 has been popular lately, and the plans with long castle especially. So bishop e3 and long castle. This has actually been tried a couple of times by Anna Muzichuk in her match against Nurgül Salimova at the World Cup. Actually, very sharp positions. Nurgül was actually more successful in these positions, but very sharp positions arising from this line. So short castle, h4, bishop f4. This is already not mainstream theory, but it makes some sense because white is trying to exchange pieces, and then the less pieces there are on the board, the more this pawn majority can tell. So knight a6, an alternative development for the knight if the route knight d7, knight f8 is not possible. So bishop knight a6, and now it's interesting decision by white, exchanging on d6 and then taking on a6. It wrecks black's structure, but it gives up the very good light squared bishop, and it leaves black with an unopposed light squared bishop, and this I'm not sure it is the best way for white to treat this position. So okay, we will see, but I'm not like impressed by this positional decision. So bishop e6, h3, stopping h3 by black. Rook b8, b3, a5. Yeah, so the wrecked structure on the queen side gave black the open b file, and he can also use the a pawn as an undermining pawn. Yeah, just start to create weaknesses on the queen side. So okay, knight c1. White is already covering b3, but I guess the idea is to go to d3 and then maybe land on c5, and then have a very good knight. But then again, if knight d3, bishop f5 can happen, and then the knight will be eliminated. But then if without the light pieces, white should be fine with a good structure. So okay, it will be interesting to see if David manages to create something against his low-rated opponent, or just it will be some sort of a draw, let's say, after mass exchanges. Let's move on to the next one. Lexi Ortega, of Cuban origin, but again, for decades living in Italy and representing Italy, against Sheila Jackson. So here what we had was a d4, knight f6, knight f3, c5, d5, d6. This is normally considered not very good for black, because white is not forced to put a pawn on c4, but can actually go knight c3 and push e4 like Alexi did in this game. e4, bishop d7, and bishop b5. This is considered also a good move, because either way black covers with bishop or knight, it introduces some sort of disharmony in black's position. Yeah. So black decided to cover with a bishop d7, and now a4. Yeah, and this is the point. Now the knight is kind of, where does it develop? Does it go to a6? Maybe. But taking on b5 allows a b5, and this is again to white's advantage. So knight bd7, queen e2, and the queen is useful here to prepare e5. Short castle, knight b6, rook d1, covering the d5 pawn and intending e5. This is white's main idea in this position. Knight fd7, covering e5, trying to prevent it. Bishop f4, queen c7. So we see it's a good battle of plans. So white is trying to push e5, but black is trying all that she can to cover that square. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 times covering e5. Yeah. So if now white wants to push e5, he needs to go maybe rook e1, rook a d1 to cover d5, and then just push e5. But there will be mass exchanges, and then maybe black can just eliminate it, just exchange everything and hope to survive. Yeah. So what white does here instead, he goes h4, which is, you could say, the second backup plan for white if e5 doesn't happen, and that is play on the king side. So h4, threatening h5 and creating threats on the king side. So h5 and now knight g5. So we see white abandons the idea of pushing e5 and then switches his attention to the king side. The idea, of course, being g4. Now knight a5. What would have happened after knight f6, preventing knight g4, is that most likely white would have returned his attention to the e5 push, so e5 would have likely happened. So black goes knight e5, and now white continues with the idea to push through g4, takes on e5, and g4, hg4, queen d7, queen g2. So very sharp position, strategically also a bit dangerous for white to give up his dark squared bishop and leave black with an unopposed dark squared bishop, but it's very concrete. Everything happens on the king side, and it may turn out that this knight on b6 turns out to be out of the game. and that can be crucial if the game is decided on the king side. So white's idea is obviously to push h5, yeah, and black should somehow defend, but white has also some other attacking ideas. For example, this idea of rook a3, moving the knight and then shifting the rook to the king side should not be forgotten, or just simply rook d3, rook h3, yeah. So serious attacking chances here for white, but okay, maybe black can defend king g7, rook h8. Yeah, we will see. So let's move to board 3, where we have Fabrizio Bellia with black against Ingrid Lauterbach. So e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, f4. So the Vienna, not a very frequent guest in practice, but yeah, it's a normal opening, I guess. d5 takes on e4, knight f3, and now bishop e7. Many moves are possible for black. Bishop e7 is one of them. I remember Kramnik playing bishop c5 against Andreikin, I think, threatening nasty things on f2, and after d4, bishop b4. And I think this is considered like the best way for black to deal with this move, knight f3, because what happens is that black pushes c5, takes on c3, doubles white's pawns, and then even pushes c4, controlling d3, and then this bishop on e2, on f1, cannot be actively placed on d3. It has to go to e2, and the black's bishop can come to f5, and black gets really active position, very well placed pieces, and better structure. But nothing wrong with bishop e7. I think this was also played by Karpov. So d3 takes on c3 and c5. Very common sense play by black. Knight comes to c6, bishop comes to e6. Okay, queen d7, long castle. This was played by Karpov. I remember there was this game against Stratescu, which he won nicely. So it's a normal, common way for black to develop. So bishop e2, knight c6, bishop d2, and now d4. Okay, this is different already, but I guess possible because no strictly need for it, but it is possible for black to play d4 if he's overtly concerned of white pushing d4. So short castle, now g5. This is already strange. I'm not saying it's bad, just strange, because no really need to start this type of activity without finishing development. So let's say bishop e6, queen d7, and then maybe g5 when long castle is ready. But obviously it's concrete. Black threatens g4, and then the pawn on e5 is attacked. So again, not sure what's happening here. Yeah, white will likely lose a pawn, but she may get compensation because of black's king stuck in the center. So let's see how it continues. C takes d4, g4, tempo. Knight e1 takes on d4 with check, king h1 takes on e5. Okay, so black won a pawn, but his king is still in the center and he's still not developed. There is this threat. No, there is no threat of bishop d6 because there is bishop f4. So in this position, I'm not sure white did not take on g4. Because the rook on a1 is hanging. Okay, after taking on g4. Yeah. So c3. Now there is a threat of bishop g4, but now h5. So if black manages to keep these c3, I'm not so sure about c3 because it looks kind of too passive, because white's pieces are really passive right now, and if she doesn't get them to play quickly, then white will just end up a pawn down. So white needs to do something fast before black consolidates. So knight c2, bishop e6, d4. Okay, this is something fast. Queen e4, rook f4, queen g6, bishop b4. Okay, peace play, but still I don't see clear compensation for white here. So short castle takes on c6, takes on c5, knight d4, and bishop d7. So black has the bishop pair and the extra pawn. And if white doesn't have anything concrete, probably should be winning for black. Okay, I mean, an endgame is clear, definitely winning for black, but okay, there's still queens on board, and as long as there are queens on board, if white manages to somehow, I don't know how, but maybe, I don't know, queen f1, rook f6, to try something, yeah, to play on the dark squares and play against the king. So let's see if white manages to stir up some trouble here as way of compensation. So let's move on to board 4. We have Giulio Borgo, another Italian international master, against Petra Nunn, wife of John Nunn. So c4, e6, knight f3, d5. I'm pretty sure John Nunn would not have played like this. He would have played the King's Indian, but okay, his wife probably has her own opinion on chess theory. So let's say e3, knight f6, b3, c5. Okay, still active play. Bishop b2, knight c6, cd, ed, bishop b2. Okay, white can also transpose to the Tarrasch with d4. There is move bishop b2, there is move bishop b5 also. So, okay, bishop b2. Now there is an option for black to play d4. Like I said, this is theory. So bishop e7, d4 now. Okay, cd4, knight d4, check on a5. Bishop c3, bishop b4. I'm not sure this is best for black, having lost tempo on bishop e7, but queen d2 takes on c3, knight c3, castles, bishop e6. Okay, so we have this standard IQP position where black is okay, but white is also okay. Yeah. So black has very good defense of the pawn, so the pawn cannot be captured, but the absence of dark squared bishops means that white can, well, likely forever have control over the d4 squares. d4 square, and the pawn breakthrough d4 will not very likely happen. But okay, it's a very, very solid position for black, so I don't know, it will be a long game, yeah. And here white decides to change the structure by taking on c6. This is also a common idea in the IQP positions, but for some reason I think it's maybe a bit premature, because why not just play rook fd1 first? Yeah, because the knight can't really, I mean, if it goes to e5, it doesn't have access to c4 square, or like g4 doesn't do anything, so likely would have stayed on c6, so white could have captured on c6 later. So why do that now? I'm not sure. And now rook fd1, queen c7. So normally now in these positions, where instead of an IQP we have this kind of pawn pair, white has two ideas. One is to play on blockade of the dark squares. Let's say something like knight a4, rook c1, knight c5, queen d4, stuff like that. And the other plan is actually to break in the center with e4, exchange d5 for e4, and then c6 is isolated and weak. So these are the two plans that white normally has in this position, and okay, we'll see which one he chooses. So okay, just checking the comments on YouTube. If you guys have said something, let's see. Okay, h3, f4. Okay, just checking. Nobody's watching this. Okay, that's unfortunate. Why am I sharing my wisdom here if nobody's watching this? Perceived number. I have no idea how many people are watching this. So anyway, I don't think there is a number here, or at least I don't see it. Okay, it doesn't matter. Going on to the next match, which is the match by the local team North Macedonia Alkaloid. And on board 1 we have Grandmaster Nedev against the team of 5 brothers. So the team of 5 brothers, here actually you have 4 brothers playing. They all have the same surname. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Something like Junshuwala. And all 4 players on the USA team have this surname, and they only differ in their first names. So it's Krishnan, Ramesh, Naresh, and Suresh. Let's check the games on board 1. Nedev, he sticks to his usual repertoire, which is the Rosolimo. Bishop b5, g6, short castle. He used to take on c6 many times, so I know these players pretty well. So I know what their tastes are. But okay, short castle, bishop g7, rook e1, and now knight f6. Normally okay, it's a possible move, certainly, but the sort of rule of thumb is that when white plays rook e1, white reacts with e5, intending to develop the knight on e7. And if white starts with c3, okay, instead of rook e1, c3 intending d4, then black plays knight f6, attacking that pawn. Yeah. And then if e5, knight d5, yeah. And with the pawn on c3, it's not that easy to lose another tempo and go c4. So the difference being that after rook e1, knight f6, now it's a mixture. White can actually play e5, knight d5, and then go knight c3. So you see that the absence of a pawn on c3 allows white to go knight c3. And normally theory continues knight c7, takes on c6, dc6, knight e4. And this is a playable position for both sides, but it's considered somewhat easier for white. He goes just d3, bishop somewhere, f4, and so on and so on. But Traiko actually takes on c6 here and transposes to the lines that could have arisen had he taken on c6 on move 4. So dc6 and now d3. Okay, but the difference is that in those lines, white usually plays h3 early on and prevents black's next move of bishop g4. But okay, everything is playable in chess nowadays. So, okay, knight bd2, knight d7, h3, takes, e5. Yeah, not strictly necessary, but possible, I guess, because there was no real need to block the diagonal of the bishop, especially as black doesn't have any development problems. He could have castled, maybe knight f8, knight e6, but okay, matter of taste, I guess. e5, bishop g5, f6, and bishop e3. Yeah, this is why I don't so much like e5, because now that bishop is very passive, and white has this plan of a3, b4, yeah, or just pushing on the queen side. Sometimes even c3, d4 is possible, because when all the exchanges happen in the center, the bishop and the king on g8 will be king will be a bit more exposed, and the bishop will be somewhat passive. So queen e7, a4, knight f8, c3, covering d4. So black is defending against knight e6. White is defending against knight e6, knight d4. Knight e6 anyway. Queen b3, rook d8, queen c4, improving the position of the queen by putting pressure here. b6, and now b4. Yeah, standard plan for white advancing on the queen side. Takes on b4, short castle, a5, rook f7. Okay, rook f7, what happens here? Just too many things hanging, yeah? I mean, rook f7, takes, and now, okay, bishop b6, probably. Just, I guess it wins the pawn, but I have no idea what black's idea may have been. I mean, knight jump somewhere, but okay, white is thinking, so probably there is something, but okay, the bishop b6, rook b8, bishop drop back to c5. Looks pretty like a clear pawn up for white, but okay, let's see what white comes up with. Next game, Ramesh against Vlatko Bogdanovsky. e4, c5. For many decades, Bogdanovsky's main openings against e4 were the Alechin defense and the Pirts, but lately he has expanded a bit his repertoire, mainly with the Caracan, but also very rarely with the Sicilian. He used to play the Sicilian on rare occasions in the past, but now with age probably he seems to feel more adventurous, not aventuristic, adventurous, sorry. So c3, knight f6, they are lapping, e5, knight d5, takes queen d4. Okay, queen d4, Played a couple of times by Nakamura in online chess, but not that great really. E6, bishop c4, knight c6, queen e4, knight d7. I remember I have looked at this line like, I don't know, maybe like 25 years ago. And I quite liked it because the idea of queen c7 and knight g6, putting pressure on this pawn kind of, and then b6, bishop b7, appealed to me. Yeah, this type of development for black. White plays f4, using the fact that the knight is not on f3, but I'm not so sure how good this is, because when black pushes the d pawn and after the exchanges, then well, this f pawn, f4 would expose the king side and also limits the mobility of this bishop on c1. So I'm not a big fan of the move, to be honest. So knight f5, knight f3, d5. Okay, this was expected. E d6, knight d6, queen moves, takes on c4. Well, black got the bishop pair as a bonus. Queen b6, stopping short castle, queen e2, bishop b7, bishop e3, queen c7, castle, castle. Knight bd2, b6. Okay, this looks fantastic for black. He has a pair of bishops. This f4 and the bishop on e3 are just out of place. And but okay, white is obviously solid, and unless he commits other inaccuracies, maybe he should draw. Yeah, but okay, we'll see. Okay, knight d4, seeking some exchanges or not. Okay, because I see rook d8, rook f3, bishop b7, rook h3. Okay, this looks completely out of place because white doesn't really have pieces to support the attack. Yes, there is this threat of queen h5, but unless, well, this is somehow strangely working for white, it should really just put the rook out of place on h3. But the threat is real, and okay, g6 is the natural move to prevent it. There is also the curious looking rook d5. Okay, let's see how Bogdanovsky deals with this. Okay, on board 3, Stanoevsky against Naresh. So another Sicilian, knight f3, 6, and b3 and g3. Okay, g3, popular line, especially after actually Carlsen used it in his first match against Anand in 2013. So ever since then, it's a popular. I even recommended it in my chessable course on 1e4. I think Wesley So also recommended it in his course. So it's a good way of let's say, circumventing all the theory after e6. So knight c6, bishop g2, d5, takes queen d5. This is not considered very good because it just gives tempo for white's development with knight c6 and doesn't do anything for the development of the bishop on c8. So normally what black does here is taking e5, and this is what Anand actually did in the game I mentioned. So queen d5, short castle, queen d7. Okay, I guess the idea is b6, bishop b7, and so on, but okay, it looks a bit slow, but maybe it's doable. I don't know. b3, but now b6 looks pretty bad. I guess black should have started with bishop d6 or something, because b6 knight e5 just wins material. Takes on e5, takes on a8, looks kind of okay, unless there is something on the white light squares, but bishop b7, take f4, and the knight is forced to go back. So this looks like game over. Okay, just a clear exchange up for nothing. Okay, bishop b2, knight f6, queen f3, bishop d6. Okay, just continuing development, forcing exchanges, just common procedure when converting an advantage. Okay, rook d1, b5, c4. Okay, yeah, this looks like just technically winning for white here. Strange decision by black to kind of, I don't know if it was a blunder or if it was a sacrifice, but either way, not good. So next game, Suresh against Kutirov, and we have Karo-Khan, which is the lifetime opening of Roland Kutirov. So e5, cd5, bishop d3, knight c6, c3, knight f6, h3, g6, all standard theory. Knight f3, bishop f5. common way of black to develop the light squared bishop in this line. And here it's I remember when I was looking at these positions, analyzing them, and I kind of created sort of a rule of thumb for myself, and that was that if black doesn't have a bishop on g7 or hasn't castled, white should not exchange bishops, because as what happened in the game, takes, bishop f4, black can actually use the g file like this, and it's becoming unpleasant for white. Okay, castling, and then let's say castle, and the point is that black can actually play for an attack here. Let's say e6, then let's say bishop d6, knight comes to e4, long queen moves, or exchange on d6, or the queen moves somewhere, then long castle, double on the g file, yeah, and it's becoming very dangerous for white. So that was the reason why I thought that white should not really exchange bishops if the g file is still open like this, with no bishop on g7 or short castle by black. And in fact, white can react here more than one way. He can just remove the bishop, let's say bishop e2, or he can just leave the bishop on d3 and let black take with something like castle. So all these reactions are possible, but of all the three, castling or moving the bishop, taking on f5 is the worst, only because there is nothing on the g file and black can use it. So takes, bishop f4, rook g8, rook g1. You see now white is kind of feels compelled to play a move like rook g1, which means that his king will either stay in the center or will go to the queen side. So e6, queen b3, queen d7, knight d2, knight e4. Okay, standard play more or less. Knight e5, takes, long castle, rook a d1. So white is preparing some sort of artificial castling, yeah, with king c1. Okay, normal position for both, I would say. Bishop d6, rook d1, rook g6, queen d1. Okay, the queen is going back to the king side. Takes, rook g8, queen f3, queen b5, king c2. Okay, some pressure for black on the g file, but easily neutralized. An idea for white could be to push g4, but the problem with g4 is that white can never take because of the rook on g1 is hanging. So ideally he would like to, let's say, force f takes g4, h takes g4, because then the pawn on f7 can become weak. But the point is that, like I said, g4 does not really force black to take. So white actually lacks attacking targets for his heavy pieces. So comfortable position for black. So we checked 4 matches from the over 65. And now over 50. And now let's move on to the matches of the other seniors, which are over 65. And let's move to board 1. I'll just check the pairings here. And we have Switzerland against Germany Lasker on board 1, and we already have a draw on board 2 in that match. We'll get there. So on board 1 we have Andreas Huss against Rainer Knack, d4 d5, c4 e6, knight f3, knight f6, cd knight c3 c6. Okay, the queen's gambit declined, exchange variation, usually considered harmless in this version with the knight on f3, but as we mentioned when talking about Arkel's game, this is not as harmless as it was considered. Yeah, some new ideas have appeared, some lines especially with the bishop on f4. Okay, and some other plans, for example, the one that I mentioned by Alpha Zero. But in this game, white actually goes for an old line that is considered fine for black. So let's see what he came up with. So g6, of course queen c2 prevents bishop f5, g6 makes sure it happens, bishop g5, bishop e7, e4. This is the old line. It's a forcing line, not quite similar to anything that the Carlsbad can offer, but it changes the structure, and white changes the tempo of the game, starting to play more concrete chess. And after d takes e4, bishop f6, queen e4, black has a choice. to go for the end game with queen e7 as he did, or just to move the king with king f8. Both are possible, but obviously you see with an IQP on d4 for white, plays more dynamic and different compared to anything from the Carlsbad. In the game, okay, black went for the endgame, queen e7, bishop c4, bishop f4, 5, takes, long castle, king f8, h3, h5. This is all theory. I've analyzed this to quite some depth, and it's not as harmless as it may appear on first sight. Yes, black is fine if he makes all the good moves and correct moves, but there are some tricks, and white certainly has an initiative with this fully developed army, and black still needs to finish his development. The king needs to move and the knight needs to be developed, so it's still some plays possible, even though I think with good analysis this should peter out to a draw. But let's see how the game continued. Knight d7, knight e4, bishop takes e4. I'm not sure knight d4. I think I've analyzed d5 and moves like that, but okay, can't remember right now. So knight e4, knight bishop takes, rook takes, knight b6, bishop b3, king g7. Now we also have opposite colored bishops, and this is a kind of a major factor towards a game ending in a draw, but you never know. So g4, not entirely necessary, especially as it opens the h file for black, but otherwise I guess white could have pushed d5 and exchanged everything there, but then the bishop would be quite strong. So okay, let's see, g4 takes. The idea of g4 obviously is to go g5 and chase away this bishop from the nice square. Rook a e8, attacking the rook e1, takes, rook h3, attacking the knight, rook f4, knight d5, okay, takes, king c2, bishop d8, g5, f6. So okay, some sort of an equal endgame. Both players are fine, I guess, especially as white's king is quite close. I mean, it can come to maybe 3 and cover like these two pawns, and then it's difficult for black to attack anything. The rook is a bit awkward there, but once the king takes over the defense of the knight, the rook can move to, let's say, g4 and maybe reroute it to the queen side, maybe to the c file and so on. Okay, not that arrow, but here to c1 and so on. But again, should be drawish. Okay, board 2, some sort of a draw. I don't know what or why. Let's check. e4 e6. French, Rubinstein, bishop g5. Nowadays, still everybody plays e5, but bishop g5 used to be, well, maybe even, it used to be more popular than e5. But the fact that it's not played that much today is not so much because of the Rubinstein d4 and so on, but you know, the computers actually discovered this very curious idea of h6. And after bishop f6, queen f6, black is obviously giving up a pawn like ed5. But it turns out that there is some compensation here. The pair of bishops, okay, and there is compensation. I'm not sure how exactly it goes, whether it was bishop before immediately or taking on d5. But even Carlsen played this with black, so yeah, well, it's another tricky variation to deal with for white after bishop g5. But here black stuck to normal development. Knight d7, knight f3 h6, takes, bishop e3, bishop d6, queen d2. Normally white castles long in this variation to be able to maybe start an attack. On the king side, so knight d5, long castle, takes, b6. Black has the pair of bishops, but white has a compact central position and possibility to attack on the king side. So g4 starting immediately. I guess e4 was possible, or bishop d3, or even check on b5, which is a typical disruptive check. Yeah, so how does black, probably bishop d7, but then the bishop can drop back, and why did black play b6 here? So anyway, g4, bishop b7, bishop g2, queen e7, knight e5. Okay, going for exchanges. Takes, short castle. And now knight f3, okay, but e5. Okay, black ensures against an attack by reacting in the center. So this probably leads to some exchanges. Yeah, h4 takes rook a e8. Now black has ideas like queen e2 to exchange queens to ensure against an attack. Actually, that's what happened. G5, queen e2. Yeah, and now I don't think white can avoid the exchange because something like queen g4 just runs into some rook e4, I guess. So, and the knight is in trouble and it's not so good. So queen e2, gh6 check, here d5, and draw was agreed. It obviously it was possible to continue, and if anybody, black should be the one with somewhat better prospects because the bishop should be stronger than the knight in this position, but okay, the players agreed to a draw. So board 3, Karadolfer against Kalinchev. Okay, c4, b6, another fighting choice, knight c3, bishop b7, d3, c5. Okay, we'll likely get a hedgehog here. g3, both sides, rook b1, castle d6. Okay, maybe not a hedgehog because white did not push d4, and soon enough black pushes d5, and well, that's a pretty good position. Takes, knight d4. Okay, white uses this typical simplifying maneuver, and now normally whenever this happens you should always check what happens against queen g2. King g2, knight d4 check. Yeah, but I guess here it doesn't really work after f3. F4. Oh, great. So yeah, I'll make a short break with the commentary. We have a guest already. We have English Grandmaster Nigel Davis. I'll just switch to his board so he can tell us about the game. Okay, yeah, please, yeah, just come here. Hello, Nigel. Welcome to the stream.
Okay, thank you for inviting me.
Good to have you here. So we were following your game, and I guess this is the correct one, the Benoni, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So as I was looking at this, I just thought that you got a really great position out of the opening very quickly, because my first concern here for white was, okay, this is all normal, and he went queen c2, which I don't think is the best.
Yeah,
normally it's knight d2.
I don't think he expected this opening because
okay.
I think I last played it maybe 40 years ago.
Whoa, okay. then it's understandable, yeah? Then it's understandable. But okay, normal Benoni is knight d2. When I said that, okay, likely you're not forced to take, you can go knight a6.
Yeah, I can play knight a6 and knight c7 and b6
exactly.
and wait.
Exactly. So we queen c2, and now it's just great for black, I think.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, here the standard plan would be a6, a4, bishop g4, which is an idea which has become very popular.
Yes.
And but I wanted to make it even more complicated for my opponent, so I decided to play
this also
knight a6.
There is some merit to it because the queen on b4 kind of invites some ideas with knight b4. They may not work in any position, but especially as likely you expect white to play a4 to stop b5 ideas, but then b4 can be a nice square for the knight.
Maybe.
Depends.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But bishop b5, I think it was just bad for white.
Yeah, I think he visibly didn't like his position.
Oh, already,
because he didn't expect this to happen. It was something I hadn't played for a while, and he played 1d4 and 2c4 quite confidently.
And then he stopped.
Yeah,
then
so
he kind of got confused, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I played the check Benoni quite a few times, so he might have
that.
thought I would do that. But then, I mean, I think these days with so many games of ours available, then it often pays to do something different to what.
I agree. Yeah. So did you prepare this specifically for this game?
No, I didn't know what I was going to do. I looked at his games and I saw he played this and I saw he played that way, and he plays quite a few different openings. He plays c4, plays d4.
You were not sure you would get this.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I would do against him, but I thought I was going to play some. Well, I didn't do it. When I saw 2c4, I decided to play a Benoni.
So it was an over-the-board inspiration, probably, yeah?
It's something I've been thinking about recently. I had a little think about it.
Right. Okay.
So
okay, bishop b5 normally. Okay, I've played the Benoni myself with black, and I know that normally it's great for black when he manages to exchange the light squared bishop.
Yeah.
And this just aids it. So
Yeah.
That's why I actively don't like bishop b5.
No, it wasn't a good idea.
And very soon, like, okay, rook e1.
Yeah.
Kind of
Well, the problem here was that I had a combination. And so I played knight b4
Right.
and the queen b1.
Yes.
And there's several ways to play this combination.
Okay, you can take d5 is hanging, yeah? If you take on b5 and d5.
Yeah, and then I fork his two knights with queen e8.
Queen e8, yes.
But there's a problem that you could
let's,
play.
let's show that, yeah? So
Yeah.
let's say bishop b5,
Yeah.
knight b5, let's say knight d5, whichever.
But the b knight is
The
probably
B
the
knight?
better one.
Okay, takes.
No, he shouldn't take. He should play rook d1.
Okay, but just let's show, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the idea of the combination. This
Yeah.
and queen e8.
So queen e8,
And
and
then
I
the
fork the
knight
two
is
knights.
hanging, and this should be great for
Yeah, I think I just win a pawn
yeah.
without compensation.
Yeah, but as you say, here you should play rook d1. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if I play rook takes e4,
Okay.
I think bishop g5 is very strong because rook takes e4. I was thinking about rook takes d5 and then
Yes.
queen e8.
The same idea.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah,
Double
but-
threat. Yeah,
yeah.
this and the knight.
Yeah, but
Right.
but he has after rook takes e4, he has bishop g5.
Okay, here bishop g5. Yeah.
And I saw my pieces hanging,
Yeah, it
and
looks awkward.
you know,
Looks awkward. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't. Maybe I'm losing material. I wasn't sure, you know, but I didn't like it.
Yeah,
You know,
I understand.
but the you know, so I didn't like these lines very much.
Yeah, when everything is hanging.
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
as you have a very good positional version of the
Yeah,
Benoni.
yeah, I can play just like a normal
like you did,
Benoni
yeah,
with
C4.
c4.
No, I
and,
think this was just
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And I think we stopped at some point. I think I moved to another game after these moves when I said here, like, okay, black is like all strategic.
Yeah.
Because, and like I mentioned also from my experience in the Benoni, when white is passive, you can like win on autopilot, just pushing the queenside pawns and just crush, you know, because there is
Yeah.
no counterplay, especially aided with the knight on d3.
Yeah.
It looks
It was
terrific for
yeah.
black.
I mean, it was a dream position
Exactly,
to get in my first game for England for
Yeah.
since 1982.
Whoa.
Yeah, since 1982.
Whoa. What was in 19? You played the Olympian?
I played a Talix match against Iceland.
Oh.
And I won my game. And then they dropped me because they wanted to give Mark Hebden a chance to play again. Right, but that was the last time I ever played for England.
That's a long
Except
time.
this is my comeback, but only for the
But this is
50
also
plus
World
team.
Championship. So
Yeah, this is a World
That's
Championship.
also another important factor. So yeah, it's not a telex match. It's a bit more serious. Yeah. Yeah, so this looks fantastic, and I think okay, bishop g5, b4. You just proceeded to just advance, and it looks
And
knight d1.
yeah, and the queen exchange is very strong. So I took
queen
it like
A8.
queen a8.
Because this is the only piece defending the queen side, and if you penetrate with the rook, it looks like
Yeah, he's
Looks-
completely lost,
yeah,
and
yeah.
my pawns are
yeah.
rolling.
And b2 is terminally weak, and some passed pawn can happen. So
Yeah.
he decided not to take, but now he
Yeah,
just
and his position
loses a
collapses.
yeah.
And
Okay, knight e3 takes
bishop
takes.
d4,
Just
and
go back,
I
takes,
took another
takes.
pawn. And
He resigned here.
Yeah, he resigned.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Basically a miniature. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, he gave me a lot of chances, obviously, you know, but it was a pleasant way.
no,
to,
but very
you know,
like confidence boosting game. I think when
Yeah,
you start
yeah.
a tournament like this, you know, you feel like great, even though your opponent gave you chances, but you can't win if they don't give you chances. So
Yeah.
So I think it's just very pleasing game. Yeah, and probably good for the team. Yeah, when they see.
Yeah,
it.
well, I don't think they wanted to see me play Queen's Gambit, you know.
Why not? I
It's
mean,
like, Nigel, don't play the Queen's
I
Gambit. It's you played horribly.
It was funny because actually there was a mess up with the translation, and your game showed as Queen's Gambit, which was actually Keith's game.
Okay.
So this showed on your board.
Yeah.
So I was thinking this can't be right, and I went down
Yeah.
to the playing hall, and I saw that this was actually Keith's game. I said, okay, that makes more sense. That makes more
Well, yeah.
sense.
I mean, you know, I've been playing quite a bit, but black has gone horribly. But I tried to play solidly because I thought I should. You know,
Yeah.
when you get older, you think, oh, okay, I play solidly now.
I'm not. Look, you've heard probably of this book, Chess for Life, which was
Yeah, I have.
You have it.
I have it. Of course,
Okay,
yeah.
so there was actually an interesting advice given by John Nunn, who by the way is also here,
Yeah.
and he actually said that when you play senior events, you shouldn't really change your natural style.
Yeah.
And if he's doing that, actually, he's playing the Velimirovic attack here, okay?
Okay.
So he's saying like, okay, I was best when I was playing attacking, chess and calculation and so on. I understand that with age this has decreased.
Yeah.
But it has decreased also for my opponents.
Yeah.
Their defensive skills, their calculation, it has also decreased.
Yes.
So I can just use my natural style that this comes.
Yeah.
I play in my natural way and I expect to still score well. So that was his advice that I remember from the book. And it kind of made sense. I'll ask him when I invite him to the call.
Yeah. No, it does
So
make
it
sense.
is something to think about, you know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something, you know.
But Black was so horrible with me trying to play solidly. It's just horrible, you know.
Yeah,
so I thought, can it be worse? You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in a way contradicts what Botvinnik said, because if you remember, he said like, okay, with age, the player should kind of reprogram himself.
Yeah.
You know, to take in consideration his declining abilities of calculation and so on. So he should adapt the style of play, repertoire, and so on.
Yeah.
But I think Nan was referring to playing other seniors, which is probably different.
Possibly. I mean, I think, to be honest, and it just doesn't work for me to play very solidly with Black, because it's been a complete disaster.
Because I remember, I saw you played some opponents during the summer, in Portugal,
and White was okay. You know, even quite reasonable. You know, but Black was just a disaster. You know, it's like draw, loss, occasionally a win, and then draw, loss.
So you like the edge, in overcoming. I mean, the edge in the position to overcome, let's say, opposition who is solid, who's happy to stay solid.
Yeah, I like. I seem to play better when I have some initiative.
Right.
You know, so so the Benoni is.
Benoni beckons,
Is
I mean, I love the Benoni. I've played it like very long time, and not always, because I kind of have the impression you shouldn't abuse the Benoni. You can't play it in every single black game that you get. From time to time, it's fantastic. And then it really, especially when you surprise your opponent, it just gives you great results. I also had great results with the Benoni. I can't complain.
Yeah.
So it's a great opening, but I felt that you should maybe combine it with something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That you can't be a sitting target these days.
Exactly.
You know,
It's a risky opening.
have to change a bit. You know,
exactly. It's a risky opening strategically, and if people prepare like against you really some line deeply, you can end up with some trouble.
Indeed.
But some occasional like spark like this, I think it works great as a weapon.
Yeah.
Nigel, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me.
I hope to see you again here. No, I'm happy to do so, and I hope to invite you again after another nice.
Okay.
Maybe Benoni win.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
for the remainder of the tournament. I'll see you around here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so we can actually make a short break here, and then we'll come back with the other matches. And well, I'll see you soon. Hello and welcome back to the live commentary of the first round of the World Senior Teams. So we are back in the studio and well, let's continue for where we left off, which was the game Kradolfer against Kalinchev, which we interrupted as we had Nigel Davis as guest in the studio. So here we had this position after knight d4, if you remember, and I was saying that, okay, you must always check these queen g2 moves, king g2, knight d4 check. And now if this rook had not been on f1, then black may have had some compensation with the knight f3 or bishop f3 ideas. Okay, but here f3 just, it's game over, basically, no compensation for the sacrificed queen. So black dropped back to d7, now massive exchanges on c6 and queen c1. In fact, I mean, this is a stable position, which is worse for white because of that weakness on d3. So d4 makes sense, but the problem is that some sort of a pin makes it really problematic for white. So he went queen c1, attacking h6, h5, and now b4. This is a decent attempt, trying to create a weakness on c5 for black, and that the idea is that it will probably neutralize the weakness on d3. So black goes h4. bc5, h3. So this is what black managed to achieve, which is to weaken white's king. f3 is the only move, and now rook e8 with tempo, queen d2 and queen d5. Interesting dynamic play for black, not taking on c5, and the idea, I suppose, is that after cb5, cb6, ab6, the threat is against the pawn on a2, and then the rook will be quite active on the second rank. So white goes king h1, which I'm not sure I like, because putting the king voluntarily in the on the same diagonal as the queen doesn't look too healthy. But okay, rook e6, rook b4. The idea is rook e4. So f5, stopping rook e4. But again, I'm not so f5. I don't know. It just weakens the king. I'm always a bit too sensitive, perhaps, when it comes to weakening moves. But so rook h4, going after the h3 pawn now. Rook ae8. The bishop is hanging. It's quite a sharp position. If the bishop moves, rook e2 can come, and well, the bishop can't really be defended because f3 is hanging. So some very concrete problems for white to solve here. I'm not sure how. The bishop should probably drop back to g1 or something like that, because otherwise, where does it go? But then there may be tricks with rook e1. Yeah, that's maybe a nice one. Yeah, bishop g1 and then rook e1. Yeah. And if rook e1, queen f3. Looks nice, but okay, I mean, let's see if it happens, yeah. So, okay, obviously black is playing for a win here. And the next game already finished. The Köhler beat Binder. So here we had another English opening, c4, knight c6, g3, 5. Let's quickly go over the game. Bishop b4. This is considered not so precise when white does not have a knight on f3 because of the move knight d5. And now bishop e7. Normally the bishop goes back to c5, not to e7. So not great opening play by black. d3. I guess it's possible, but just taking the bishop pair also looked okay. d3 takes on d5, bishop b4 check. Bishop d2 takes, knight e7, queen c3. Knight g6, knight f3, d6, rook c1. Yeah, this is the problem in these structures for black, that white manages to put pressure on the c pawn, and well, black loses material, it seems. Yeah, knight d2, knight d7, knight d2, and now there is no c something. Yeah, because en passant, and white wins the pawn. So we have 5, queen c7, and okay, it's already game over. Yeah, so takes, king d8, drop back. It's a clear pawn up. Yeah. Also additional problems with d6, so knight a5, king d2. Oof. Yeah, it's just horrible. Yeah, e4, then the bishop can be activated by h3, g6, king e3, bishop f3. Okay, now there is another idea with bishop d1, bishop a4, rook c8, takes, bishop d1, bishop a4, bishop c6. Another bone in the throat. Knight e7, f4, takes, h6, h4, h5, rook c3, e5 finally, and it's breakthrough time. King d4, go back. Okay, black blocked the g file, but e file now is the problem. And this cannot be sustained for long. Okay, just one-sided game. Okay, let's go to John Nunn's game, which has been widely discussed on chat. And people were discussing various plans, what to do, and we've had a transformation in the meantime because we saw this position when white won a pawn by taking on d6 and then using the pin with e5 to regain the rook. But what happened is that we have these opposite colored bishops, okay, and the position we have now is after king c6 by black. And yeah, this will be a long game, I think, because as I wrote in chat on YouTube, the official channel, white will combine threats. Okay, so he can't win b5, but white can push at some point c4 or a4 and create a passed pawn, c or a. I would say that white should be striving for c4 and after bc to obtain a passed a pawn rather than a passed c pawn, which is kind of closer and the king is already blockading it. So a passed a pawn, which will be pushed as far as possible, and then again combining threats with, like I said, rook g4, rook g7, attacking these two pawns. But that of course will depend on the position of the bishop. If the bishop stays on the b1 h7 diagonal, okay, white plays c4 immediately, creating a passed a pawn. So if the bishop stays on the b1 h7 diagonal, then black has defended against this threat of the rook landing on g7, but the bishop on that diagonal cannot participate in play on the queen side that white will now start by pushing the a pawn. So this is a typical situation of the concept of two weaknesses. Yeah, so widely known that black is controlling the weaknesses on the king side by the bishop, but he cannot. Well, he will try, but it's difficult to do so. Defend against the weaknesses on the queen side, which in this case is white's strength. Black doesn't really have a weakness, but he has to defend on the queen side thanks to the white obtaining a passed pawn. So rook c8, played by black, gives an additional option of c5, but I don't think that's very good because then just black obtains this blockade on the light squares, which is his chance to draw. So I expect these pawns to be exchanged at some point, and then white to start pushing the a pawn. But this will be a long game. It will take some time to maneuver the pieces, to advance, and so on. So it will take. We will return to this game at a later stage. So in the meantime, Danner lost to Chapman. So let's quickly go over that game. G3, D5, C4, some strange reti. D4, knight F3, knight F6, but now it's normal reti. So bishop G2, E5, D3, bishop B4. If you remember the game by Lexi Ortega, we have exactly the same, but with colors reversed and extra tempo for white here. This check on B4 is very unpleasant in this sort of Schmidt-Benoni, I think it's called, because it makes it unpleasant for white either way he covers. In that game, the opponent covered with the bishop. Here, white covers with the knight, but a5 follows anyway as it stops a3 and b4. So a3, bishop e7, castles, knight f6, b3, short castle, bishop b2, bishop e5. As in the Ortega game, with colors reversed obviously, the main idea for black in this position is to push through e4. So h3, h6, allowing for some bishop a7 perhaps, queen c2, queen d6. White is trying to prevent e4 by controlling that square many times. And now knight e4. Now this is a pretty physical way to stop e4, but the problem is that the doubled pawns here are not exactly great. Black could have considered taking with e4 on e4 with the pawn, with the bishop, as the position remains closed, but taking with the knight, I guess it's also okay. Bishop g6. Now the ideas like f4 are, like f5 are possible. Rook a d1, rook a d8. Okay, f5 I guess was playable, even though I suppose that after f5 something like knight e1 would be played by white. So controlling the e4 pawn, and at some point maybe playing knight d3. Not now because it's hanging, but maybe later. Maybe knight d2 also. Okay, so for now black doesn't do anything in the center. Rook d8, knight e1, okay, going to d3, queen e6, g4. Okay, this stops f5, but again weakens the king side. So, well, I'm not sure. I don't really like it. If some pawn had to be moved, then f4 made more sense. Threatening f5. So what could have been black's idea here? Maybe d3, maybe f5, yeah. Yeah, now it's strange. Maybe g4 is possible, but this is kind of weird, yeah. So g4, bishop g5, activating the bishop, bishop f3. Okay, why? I don't know. Queen e7, knight d3, b6, king g2, rook b8, a4. Again, just too many holes. I don't know. I mean, it stops b5, but just too many holes. Knight b4, knight b4, a b4, bishop c1, c5. So everything locked on the queen side. So how did white manage to lose this in 5 moves? Bishop d2, rook d8, queen c1, takes, bishop rook d6, queen c1, rook d8. Okay, the game stopped here, and it says black wins because he's winning the pawn, and it's really unfortunate that white managed to kind of maneuver himself into this really again unfortunate setup, and position of the pieces. Okay, unexpected quick win for black. So let's move to the next board. We have Chris Baker against Günther Hubbard, and here we have a Sicilian, c3 on move 3, knight f6, h3 is possible, but now e6 is just not very good, because normally black plays g6 here and leaves the this diagonal open, and also leaves the possibility to play e5 in one go. So e6 is not like critical, at least. Bishop d3, knight c6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, bishop c2, e5. Okay, so you see now loss of tempo. d4, queen c7. So we have some sort of Ruy Lopez where black did not expand and the bishop was already on c2. So d5 possible, but it was also possible to keep the tension with knight bd2. So d5 goes back to b8, knight d2, knight e8, knight c4. Not sure about knight c4. It invites b5, so maybe it was possible here. Let's say one move back, knight b8, just to go c4 and knight c3. Just very advantageous, let's say, King's Indian structure for white. Yeah, black's pieces are not very well placed. Okay, it's underdeveloped, and white has space advantage and can quickly start advancing on the queen side. So really pretty good position for white. But knight bd2 is fine, and now knight c4. I know, sending the knight to the traditional Ruy Lopez route also looks decent. C4 also looks decent, but knight C4, G6. Okay, why not B5? Knight E3, maybe, I don't know. Well, yeah, G6, A bishop H6, A4. Yeah, A4 should have been played maybe earlier, but okay. Knight D7, Queen D2, F6, Knight E3. I get the impression that White doesn't really know where he's playing, but because with the knight on C4, it makes sense, for example, to play on the queen side. Let's say bishop D3 followed by B4, and then use this knight for queen side play. But okay, knight E3, rook F7, G4. So now White switches to king side play, typical Lopez play. Yeah. So black is obviously very solid there, so it's how to break through. Let's see, king H2, G5. Wow, this is again very holy, meaning full of holes, not spiritual. So we have these two here. Well, not well, I don't know. I would never have played this, but okay. Knight F5, knight G6. I don't get this. So if bishop G7, then bishop F5. No. Bishop F5. Maybe bishop F5, but GF. And now, what was the idea? Maybe positional piece sacrifice like this, as the bishop on H6 can. I don't know. This looks so strange. So why knight G6? What if just knight G7? Maybe he wanted to sacrifice an exchange and then claim that thanks to dark square control, black can hold some sort of positional draw. Okay, I don't know. H4, white just ignores everything. Knight F5, G5, knight F4 now. Rook G1, bishop F8, takes on H6. So black sacrificed the pawn, but kept this great knight on F4. Okay, maybe. But the G file is kind of sensitive. So rook G4, bishop D7, rook G1, rook F8. Now knight H4. So will the attack crash through or not? Knight G6 is the natural move to be played, but queen D8. And now queen E3. Why queen E3? No idea. I mean, this looks like some, like, I don't know, let's say rook F4 takes, knight G6 check. And if takes, this is like crushing. And if it doesn't take, goes king G8. This also looks pretty scary, just even take on F4. I don't know, looks like devastating, but I don't know why didn't take there. Maybe even knight G6 directly is good, but just get the rook out of the diagonal. Queen E3 looks kind of okay. Maybe queen G3 is the idea, but then knight E2, I don't know. So bishop D1, rook E7, rook G7, knight H5. Take. I think I probably missed a forced win here. Maybe still winning, but still I don't know. Okay, black must take on E7, and then we'll see. So let's see any comment in chat. Okay, nothing there. Okay, so let's move to the fourth board of the match between England and England, I think. No, actually no, it wasn't England. It's England against Austria. Okay, England against Austria. So what we had here is the Taimanov Sicilian, bishop E3, F4. Okay, this is interesting. I used to study this for white, analyze it. It's actually quite interesting. B5, bishop D3, yeah. And now this is bad for black, taking this pawn, because it gives just tremendous compensation for white. I'm not sure if the move was queen F3 or E5, but it's tremendous for... Okay, D6, knight B5 now. Okay, maybe it works. Does it? Okay, I just saw some fun line. I'll just show it. Yeah. So let's say b5, bishop b5 check. Cannot cover because queen f7, so king d8. Now queen f7, queen f7, and now bishop b6 check. Ah, but there is king e7. Okay, can't really work. So no, maybe just rook f7, but then bishop is hanging. So yeah, maybe it's okay. Okay, black decided not to take bishop b6 now. Wow, this is great. f6, knight c7, king f7, knight a8, queen a8. Okay, it appears game over again. Just a tour de force by white, and well, just clear exchange up. So let's see how it continued. h5, h3, h4, while trying to establish some sort of grip over the position for black, but material should count. b3, c4. Well, wow, bishop c. No, I don't really like how white played this, because obviously black improved the position. Takes, queen f2, queen c7. Okay, should still be winning, but just far from ideal technique for white, like ending up with this horrible bishop, exchanging dark squared bishops, allowing these dark square weaknesses. Definitely not how you should play. So we'll see. So okay, we can now go back to the we check how many matches did we check from the S65. Yeah, we checked 2 matches. Okay, let me see if okay. So yeah, we can go back to the matches of the S50. So I'll switch there. This, and let's go back to the first match. We had the Canada against USA. So Plotkin against Shabalov. The position on board. Okay, we left off. Where did we leave off? It was early on, yeah? Yeah, it was early on. So bishop f3, yeah. And f5. Okay, f5, definitely I did not expect this. I was expecting something like e6, knight f5, but f5, well, obviously what black wants to do is to establish this control with over the light squares with his pawns. Okay, so f5 falls into that category, but it does weaken some squares on the e-file, so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he judged that white can't really use the e-file. So bishop e2, knight f7, short castle, queen c7, queen c1, long castle. Aggressive intentions, yeah, long castle and trying to maybe h6, g5 and so on. Bishop c4, rook f8, knight e2, f4 was maybe hanging in the air somehow. Maybe not immediately, but at some point. But the knight on g3 was definitely not good, so e5 now. Okay, so white, somehow black managed to get rid of these problems on the e-file. Yeah? D takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop b3 and c5. Okay, play on the whole board, yeah? c4, knight f4, c4, knight d6. Already sharp stuff. Queen c6, knight g7, rook g8. So knight is trapped, bishop is trapped, yeah? Bishop a4 gives up the bishop to save the knight. Queen a4, knight e6, rook e8, knight c5. Quite a jumpy knight, yeah? Takes, yeah, and g5. So the position simplified, but obviously black is more active and is pushing on the king side. So bishop d4, knight c6, bishop c3, rook e2. Black's problem is the queen is a bit offside. So he needs time to reroute it, maybe queen d5, and then queen d5 and get it somehow back. b3, queen b5, rook e1, takes, f4, takes, and queen d1, rook d1. Okay, so endgame, yeah? Endgame should be around equal. I mean, the bishop is obviously stronger than the knight in an open position. And these pawns could be problematic for black, especially something like, let's say, f3, rook d5, especially as they are dark squares. But okay, black should kind of not risk losing. Yeah, so this is around equalish, I would say. But if anyone who's to be careful, it should be black. Surprising twist, because I expected black to have more, to make more of the attacking chances, but some reason did not happen. Let's check Kaidanov against Baron, a rook endgame. So we left off, where did we leave off? Where were we in this one? It was the Dutch, but it was here. Yeah, right. So e4, okay. Okay, what white wants to do is to open the position and try to get to black's king. So rook e8, h5, g5, takes, knight d4. So he by getting the pawn to h5, white managed to weaken the light squares in black's position. So bishop d7, bishop d3. Yeah, targeting the light squares. Bishop d7, knight d5. Flows nicely, but is there anything concrete? Maybe f4. f4 should be a threat. So yeah, it looks dangerous for black, definitely. So he went c6. Maybe f4 here was also knight d3, d3, cd5. Well, probably it doesn't work. No. So bishop g6 check, takes, queen d6 check, bishop e6, takes, knight c7, bishop g4. Okay, this is again very tactical. Everything is hanging. The knight on d4 is hanging, e6 is hanging, e8 is hanging, and now black even counter attacks. Yeah, removing the attacked bishop. Knight e8, bishop d1, knight g7, rook d4, knight e6. Again, we have a jumpy knight. Rook d6, and now knight g5. So white wins the pawn. Okay, a long tactical sequence where white wins the pawn. f3, a5. I'm curious whether black could have maybe tried g4, but I don't know if this is in his favor or not. Even after fg and then maybe rook f2 or something. But then he runs the risks of losing the queen side. So probably not a good idea. So a5, rook d7, b5, b3, king f5, king d2, king f4. So okay, black doesn't want to exchange the g5 pawn and wants to create some counterplay on the king side. Rook d4, the idea is to put the rook on g4, so preventing that idea of king g3, so king goes to the center. Rook g4 now again. But by not exchanging that pawn, now he needs to defend that pawn. So, well, you never get pros without cons. Rook f5, king u3, king d5, rook d4 check, king c5. I'm not sure black should send the king to the queen side, because rook e4 and now the king is cut off. And what if just white starts pushing here, g3, f4, or just f4 and create a passed pawn? It can be just a technical win. But okay, rook d5, king e2 stopping rook d1, b4 fixing a2, c3. Okay, what white wants to do is he wants to kind of eliminate any possibility of counterplay on the queen side and then start create a passed pawn and start pushing. So c3 takes. I'm not sure if he should have taken, because when by taking, I mean, that pawn on b4 fixes the pawn on a2, so it's a weakness. So by taking, that means that pawn is no longer a weakness, can advance. So I'm not sure black should have taken. Rook c4 check, a4, pushing the king back, and now taking. And now that everything is safe on the queen side, and now it's time for white to start pushing on the king side. Okay, this looks like winning for white. Just no counterplay for black. White can even maybe play rook e3, rook f3, defend this pawn, and support the f pawn. So But there may still be some issues like king b4, c5, c4, and then a4 may hang. I kind of have a feeling that this should be winning, but probably some technical work is still required. So in the meantime, West won that position where I said that the knight on b3 is misplaced. So we move in here, c6, a4, a5, queen d2, rook e8. We saw until queen d2. So let's see how this develops. So f3, yeah, okay, knight h5, g3. It's clear that without anything concrete on the queen side, yeah, white is limiting his play to restricting black on the king side, but that knight on b3 is really such a bad piece. And it stops any play for white on the queen side. Like with the knight on c4, just many more possibilities would have been open. But now, like, what can white possibly do? Yeah, bishop a8, knight b1. Okay, so probably he recognized the need for a knight on c4. Yeah, but f5 now, takes, knight a3. Probably just something prophylactic with like bishop f2 was better, and then f4, g4, knight a3. But now black is just fast. f4, bishop f2, takes, queen g7. Yeah, this is just white wasted so much time. No, sorry, the wrong arrows. Oh, come on. Okay, no arrows. So g3 is hanging. Just those knights are kind of completely out of the game. King h2, knight f6, just piling up. Knight c4, yeah, too late, Mr. Findlay. Bishop e6, knight e3, king h8, knight g2, bishop b4, queen c2, and okay, just a simple combination. Yeah, if takes, rook g8, and disaster happens on the g file. Okay, yeah. Nice execution by Elwes, but only because white misplayed the position after the opening by putting the knight on b3. Let's check the Novikov Doherty game, and it was the Rogozin when black played e4, if you remember. Knight h2, bishop e6. Okay, this is not what I expected. I expected more something like bishop f5, but then again bishop f5 may run into something like f4 thanks to this pin, and then then black has nothing on the king side. So maybe bishop f5 was not best, but bishop e6, d5. Now actually we have a transformation again, knight d5, knight e4, and it's the same transformation as if black had taken on d4 or white had taken on e5. That's the same structure. So bishop f8, knight f3. So we have this same structure. Normally this is considered a okay structure for black, but it all depends on the pieces. Like here white has kind of active pieces, and let's say this bishop moves to a2 and knight comes to c5, it can become unpleasant for black. Yeah. So queen e7 controls the c5 square, so white sends the knight to f5 maybe. Yeah. Rook d8, but this just blunders a pawn. Yeah. So black should have played something else, definitely. What? Difficult to say, but at least not move the rook from a8. Yeah, because rook a d8, bishop a6 wins the pawn. So okay, clear pawn up, winning position. Let's see how it went on. Queen e6, bishop c4, rook a d1, just improving the position, not changing much. Bishop c6, bc, knight d4. Yeah, winning in more material. Yeah, takes on c6. Okay, just feels like a smooth win for white. Takes on d4, just clear exchange up and a pawn. So black has some sort of control over the light squares, some blockade, but this shouldn't really suffice. Yeah, especially as white has also passed pawn in the future. Queen c1, targeting h6, h5, bishop e5. Now the bishop is very active on e5, knight h7, knight e4, now targeting the dark squares, queen f5, f3, rook e8. Okay, this is winning for white. He'll find a way to win, so it's quite likely that Team USA will win their match. Let's move to the duel of the English. So Michael Adams, we left off after h3. Black played b5. Okay, bishop drops back to c2 and knight d7. Okay, so this is how he solved the problem of the pawn on c6 hanging, by pushing b5. So a4, typical Ruy Lopez move to weaken black's queenside. b4. I'm not sure if bishop a6 was maybe possible, not to weaken the structure, but bishop d3 is probably not very pleasant to deal with, even though maybe no, probably not. Yeah, because ab5 will force black to take with the bishop, and then a5 will be weak, because cb will just drop the pawn on a5. So so yeah, how is USA doing? Well, they will win the match, that's for sure. Just we'll see the result. So black played b4, cb4, bishop b4, and again weaknesses on the c file. This looks like a very pleasant position for white. Rook ac1, bishop a6, bishop d3 as expected. Exchanges on d3, and this only exposes the weaknesses black has on the c file. Knight c5, rook e3, defending the pawn on e4, queen e6. Finally getting rid of the pin, but now bishop f6. This is just in time, because if black managed to move the knight, let's say, the bishop would have been left out of play. So just in time, Adams gets rid of a potentially bad piece. Queen f6, b3, stabilizing control over the light squares and defending the pawn on a4. Rook c8, queen c4. Yeah, white is dominating on the light squares, and also black has weaknesses on the c file. So this is like a very nice, pleasant technical position that I'm sure Adams is enjoying. Knight e6, g3, stopping knight f4. Rook d8, king g2, c5. Okay, weakening more light squares. Not sure if this was necessary. h4, rook d6, h5. You see how nicely Adams increases his light square control even on the king side. Yeah. So now these two squares. Okay, maybe knight h4, knight f5 can happen, and so on, or knight h2, knight g4. So rook d8, knight h2. Okay, maybe black's idea was to stabilize the queen side like this. Okay, with these a5, bishop b4, and c5, everything being stable, and on dark squares, everything's defended. Yeah, horrible weaknesses on the light squares, but he hopes that somehow he manages to defend. So Adams shifts now a bit the play to the king side. So h4, h5, the knight is coming to g4, putting pressure on e5. So black goes queen e7, and I suppose that after knight e5, knight g5 is the idea, and then e4 is hanging. So rook h1 or knight e5, bishop d2, maybe that too. Yeah, but knight g4 was possibly a move that could have been considered. But okay, rook h1, knight d4 now rook d1. Okay, exchanges of one pair of rooks works for white, because black has control over the d file. King h7, now rook f1. Shifting here and there, okay, without a clear plan, maybe that means that black is not that bad, and it's not so easy to take advantage of these light squares. So f6, knight h4, queen b7, knight f3, queen d7, rook h1 takes. Well, I don't know why he took, but the knight was doing really great on d4, so I don't know why he took. But taking, I just think it gives white. Maybe the idea is rook d4, but knight f5, knight e3, knight d5. If this happens, it's just probably just winning for white. The bishop is out of play, and white can maneuver any way he sees fit. So I'm not sure why he took on f3, but well, this is what we have. But maybe it's something concrete again. Maybe rook d4 is the idea. Rook d4, and then harassing the queen with queen c2, rook d2, and so on. We will see. Let's move on to board 2, where we skipped this game because it was not correct, and I still don't think it's correct because I don't think this was the Queen's Gambit declined. I think it was I think I saw it was some sort of a Berlin when I went to the playing hall, but I don't know, so I'll just skip it again. I don't know who's playing, I don't know if it's the correct one, but okay. As it is, okay, black is whoever it is, so it's a pawn up, opposite colored bishops, good winning chances, so we'll see. Keith's game, okay, you see the transformation, how Keith managed to maneuver nicely to establish a dream knight on c5 in his beloved Carlsbad, yeah. So let's check what he did. So we were here after knight g2, okay, rook e8, knight f4, rook e7, rook e1, king g7, queen f1. Yeah, Keith is careful. He sends the queen to g2 to cover for any kingside weaknesses. So even though, well, he's aware of this weakness, like I said, I didn't think he liked it. So he just sends the queen to the king side just in case, prophylactically. So knight e4, and now rook e4. Probably there was something to be said about d takes e4 because it fixes the f3 weakness. It's not easy for the knight to get there, but it's also not impossible. Let's say knight f6, h6, knight h7, knight g5, knight f3, yeah? And especially with the queen on g2, white, normally in this structure, white tries to do something on the queen side, b4, b5, maybe rook c1, rook c5, and so on. But with the queen on g2, this is not so easy to achieve. So I'm not sure what white would have done. Maybe g5 is a move here to stop knight f6. But anyway, I just think that knight d4 was a decent alternative. Rook e4, nothing wrong with it, of course. Queen g3, threatening knight h5, so queen b8, defending the queen, king g2, rook e7, and knight d3. And now Keith gets what he wants. Exchanging the queens, there is no more attack or threat of an attack on his king, and he can just continue and achieve his minority attack. b4, knight b6, black sends the knight to c4. Yeah, knight c5, white sends the knight to c5, knight c5, knight c4, a4, knight d6, okay, the knight defends the pawn, king g2, rook a8, black is getting ready for a possible b5 to take a b5. Now there is not a threat of b5 because it's well defended, but just in case white somehow maneuvers the knight and threatens b5, a b5 would open the file, but this is very far-fetched, so black is just marking time. Rook c1, king f6, king rook b3, king g7, knight d3, rook e8, knight f4. King likes to move around, and now sends the knight to c3, as I mentioned, to support b5. Black plays b5 to stop it. Yeah. The knight now returns. Yeah. Intends to go to c5 again. Knight c4, a5, closing everything, but fixing a6. So now the knight gets to c5. Yeah, and now once this has been established, okay, there is also always going to be a black piece tied down to the defense of the pawn on a6. White will turn his attention to the center and will prepare likely either f3, e4, or some f4 and advance on the king side. So rook e1, yeah, king f8, rook c2, rook e7, rook e2, knight d6, f3. Okay. Knight b7. Yeah, black would like to exchange knights, but white won't allow it because the knight is really annoying by targeting the pawn on a6, so the rook is tied down to its defense. Knight d8, where does the knight go to? e6 maybe, but rook c2, tying it down to the defense of the pawn. Rook a d7, king f2, rook d6. Okay, so black defends the pawn like this, and the other rook will go to defend the pawn on a6, and the knight may come to e6 maybe. Perhaps this is the idea. But rook c1 makes sure that the knight does not leave d8. King g7, knight c5, forcing rook a7. King e2. King goes to d3 to cover the d4 pawn, and then e4 is an idea. So king f8, king d3, f6. h4, okay, can expand there. King f7, but now f4. I was actually expecting e4, but let's see what white's plan is f4, king g7, f5. Aha, okay. And then e4 maybe. King f7. Okay, this looks strategically winning for white, because black is very passive. And it looks like another vintage Keith Arkell performance in the Carlsbad. Even starting from a disadvantageous Carlsbad with this g4, but he exchanged queens, maneuvered nicely, outplayed black, and now he has all sorts of ideas to play for a win by opening the king side and taking advantage of the fact that black is passive and tied down to the defense of the a6 pawn. So good winning chances for white there. And in the meantime, the game was drawn. Adam's game was drawn. Let's check that one. So after rook f3, actually the game was drawn. So white offered the draw. Maybe this was what was intended. Yeah, and the queen just goes back and... So okay, surprising actually. I was hoping, or rather expecting, that white would find a better way to use these all light square weaknesses, but black seems to have played well, and well, drawing Michael Adams, well, no small feat. And so let's move on to the next match, which is England's women against Italy. Okay, so we left off, where were we? Susan Lalic against Alberto David, so we were a4. No, we were late. Okay, we were here. Yeah, knight c1 was played by white. c5 for black. Rook e4, queen d5, rook e1, cd, rook d4, queen g5, threatening bishop h3, queen d2, takes and f4. Yeah, this is the problem. The bishop is quite active in these open positions, and black is using the doubled pawns to create weaknesses in white's position. Now rook d4. Ideally, safest for white would be just to eliminate all pawns on the queen side and just then play with a knight on one wing, which should be fine. Ideally, okay, it would even be better if white manages to keep one pawn on the queen side, but even giving up one pawn in order to eliminate all pawns is satisfactory. But how to do that? Yeah, AB, G5. Obviously, black will advance there. Rook A4. This is a blunder, but maybe not. Okay. Rook A4. Okay, let's see what happens. Bishop H3. It wins a pawn because there is this trick of rook E1. So rook E8, rook A, Gh3, check, and king rook C1, and black won a pawn. So probably a blunder by white. Still not that simple, because 4 against 2 on the king side is complicated for the fact that these two are double pawns. So c4, rook c3, rook a7, rook b3, rook d7, and rook d4. And yeah, black now advances, white waits. Not sure if white can wait forever, and not sure if that rook on d4 was the best square for the rook, but okay. Why not king e4 here? Maybe f3 is a trick, no trick, so not sure. Maybe just black was marking time. f6 first, f4, f3, king e5. Now the king goes forward. Yeah. Okay, now looks kind of winning. Yeah, g4 is coming. There are mating threats. c4 is weak. So yeah, black will win this. So yeah, this is how strong players win against weaker ones, when even with seemingly sterile positions, there is always some play left, and white did not manage to play precisely to, let's say, controls black's initiative on the queen side. Let's see if Lexi managed to... Whoa, this was wild. What happened to that white attack? Let's go back. So yeah, we left off here, and I said, okay, king g7, rook h8 was black's way to kind of try to defend on the king side. h5, rook h8, takes, and rook d3. I also mentioned this rook swing to f3, now threatening maybe rook f7, rook h5, knight e6, check, nice square for the knight, king f7, rook h3, exchanging the rooks, and this prevents black from doubling on the h file, which was the threat. So rook h8, queen f3 check, bishop f6, rook a7. Okay, looks devastating, but let's see what happens. Knight c4, yeah, the knight joins the game. b3, knight e5, queen g3, g5, king g2, g4, queen f4, rook knight f3, b6. Yeah, black is solid on the dark square, so that's why it's not so simple for white to kind of break through immediately. Yeah, rook h2, king g3, rook h1, and now even some counterplay against the king. So queen g4, sacrifice of the queen in order to play with knights on light squares. A very nice sacrifice. Yeah, let's see if it worked out. Bishop c3, rook b7, queen b5, rook b8, queen e2. Okay, this actually maybe is just losing for white, but I have absolutely no idea what happened here. Okay, let's go back. Here, b6, yeah? Wow. Queen rook h2 is not really, or is it really a threat? No, it's not really a threat. The king can just go to e2 and d3. So maybe white should have just taken the time to improve the king. I mean, an idea I had was e5, but I'm not sure if it works to free the e4 square for the knight. But okay, b6 check. Why not king f1? And if check, king e2. Is this dangerous? If rook e1, king d3. And if knight e5, king d2. So doesn't look too scary, but who knows? But he went g3, and after rook h1, yeah, now the king cannot run away because this is embarrassing. Yeah. So there is also, yeah, so he took on g4, but this is just too strange. Yeah, check, king f3, takes and takes. So just a rook for the queen. Again, I mean, should be losing, but you know, okay, maybe after rook e8, maybe there may be some perpetual here. But okay, he went rook b7, queen b5, rook b8, now rook b8, queen e2 check, king g5, and now there is this threat of mate. Fantastic game, yeah. I wonder how much the engine would laugh. So there is this threat of mate, and now bishop f6 check. Why? But there is also a threat of b7, so maybe queen bishop g7, just preventing any sort of. But then maybe there is knight d8. I have no idea what's going on here. Knight d8 and knight e6. It's a perpetual unless black gets the king to h7, or just b7 here. Wow. But then queen f2, at least black has a perpetual. Who's playing for a win here? Okay, let's see what happened. Bishop f6, king h6, check, king h7. Amazing stuff. Yeah, now there is threat of mate. And he gets to give up the piece. Take on f2, knight f5. Here, knight threatening mates, knight h6, king f6, rook f8, king e5. Wow. Now just b7, queen e4 check, rook f5 check, and b8. Wow, this was a crazy game. Indeed. Yeah. Okay. Looks like winning for white now, but I don't know. In view how the game went, you never know. Okay. Ingrid Lauterbach against Belia. We said that this was like technically almost winning for black, which we left off. Where did we leave off? Just a second. We left off when the queen was on g6, but let's see. No, not here. Earlier. Ah, yeah, somewhere here. Okay, bishop d7. Yeah. So I said queen f1. Okay, that's what was played. Bishop e7, preventing rook f6, and now knight f5. Bishop g5, rook f2. Rook a e8, takes, knight d6, rook e7. So white stirred up some activity, but f5 it doesn't seem to be enough, yeah. But I still don't think this is like as straightforward. Like f5 I don't really like, but I just think some, let's say, blockading move like, okay, queen c4 check maybe, and then some rook f4, just to stop f4 ideas, and with some stability on the dark squares, maybe white is not doing that badly. Yeah, but queen c5, queen e3, yeah, forces an endgame, and this is winning for, looks winning for black. Yeah, so that was just bad. White had to establish some sort of blockade on the dark squares. So knight c4, rook e7, rook e2, rook d2, bishop e8, rook d8. Okay, black consolidates and then just probably just pushes his extra pawn. Yeah, this is already just, yeah, mate is coming, so yeah, well. Okay, so in the meantime, David won against Lalic, that endgame that we saw. And now let's see on board 4, which is Borgo against Petra Nan. Looks completely winning for white, 2 extra pawns in the rook endgame. Yeah. So Italy will win the match probably by 4-0. The Macedonian team already won. They already won the first 3 games, 3-0, and the 4th game is still ongoing. So let's just check what happened in Nedev's game. He played rook a6, bishop b6 I guess was also possible, but c5, rook b6, again clear pawn up, 2 pawns, and black shouldn't really have anything on the king side. Rook b1, queen e8, yeah, c7. Okay, this is just straight winning here. Takes rook b8 and just queen. Okay, it's game over. Yeah, even some queen f7. Nice queen sacrifice and just finish. Okay, Bogdanovsky beat another brother, and we left off after rook h3, which is, that was kind of looked way off. g6, the natural way to defend. Rook f1, bishop f6, knight f3, some exchanges, bishop d5. Yeah, there's simply not enough light square control for white to mount any type of attack. Rook c1, just already drifting, yeah. Queen d6, b3, queen f3, knight d2, c4, bishop b7. Light squared bishop is very strong. Yeah, bishop. There's some classical Botvinnik games winning in this structure thanks to that bishop. Queen a3, queen a5, some maneuvering and winning a pawn, yeah, on a2. Okay, just yeah, nice win for black, and we already saw that this was already immediately decisive in the beginning when white had an extra exchange. Where did we leave off? Somewhere here. Yeah, it was elementary technique, I would say, just going for exchanges and really not allowing any counterplay. Yeah, queen g2, king moves away, exchange of queens, and that's it. Yeah, then just everything is decided on the other side of the board as white creates a passed pawn and game over. And on board 4, okay, queen endgame, but black is obviously trying to win, but there is this danger of a perpetual check now. Queen b6, queen d8, probably queen e3 check will happen, and should be kind of simple because the queen controls the diagonal. Okay, queen c3, I guess maybe this just forces the exchange of queens. King d5 only move because otherwise queen c6 and then queen c6 but I know that will just lose for black. So because after the exchange the h pawn just goes. So king d5 is the only move, and then okay, whatever. Yeah, just pawns advance, doesn't matter. Should be winning. Yeah. So probably 4-0 for the Macedonian team. Okay, so let's check the other section under over 65. So what is this game? This was the English team. So okay, let's go back from board 1. This was drawn. We left off somewhere. Oops, no, where did we leave off? Yeah, this was the end game that we left off, and like I said, it's drawish, and yeah, it's soon enough rook end game happened, and everything was exchanged. Yeah, so this is just a draw, elementary draw. On board 2 we already saw that one. On board 3 Kalinchev won. Let's see what happened after this move. Rook f8. No, actually there was a doubling on the e file. Okay, here it finished. Okay. What I mentioned was bishop g1, rook e1, but I didn't realize that this was that winning. Yeah, immediately winning. So maybe it wasn't. White resigned. Okay, and on board 4, black also, the German team also won, and this was we already saw this one. So 3-1 victory for the German team. Let's see John Nunn, how he's progressing with the conversion phase. Let's move c4 rook d8. This is where we left off. So king d2 takes. Yeah, as expected, white must keep the rooks on board because this is just an elementary draw. Let's say takes, because the king just blocks the a pawn and the bishop defends everything on the queen side, so it's a fortress. That's why white must keep the rooks on board. Rook a4, rook c2 check, king e3, king c6, and now, like I said, the idea of two weaknesses. White will advance the a pawn, but also will try to do something on the king side. So let's see how white manages that. Rook b4, okay, rook b8, king d5, some maneuvering. Rook c4, rook d8, bishop g6, bishop b4, king c6, some maneuvering. And then at some point, white will have to start pushing the a pawn and try to kind of take advantage of the fact that the bishop is not included. Yeah, it doesn't take part in the blockade or the fight against the a pawn. But then on the other hand, it's black's king and rook against white's bishop and a rook. So white will maybe at some point go king g5 for sure, king f6, maybe some exchange sacrifices will be there in the air, maybe sometimes f5. Okay, still some tactics left in the position and still a long game ahead. The other games, the English have won. Chapman, we saw he won, and then Baker, we saw this one as well. When here actually okay, black resigned because maybe this was the idea. Knight g6 takes, and then g7 is happening. Okay, I think he could have won faster, but this was good enough. Yeah. And Weinwurm against Polach. I said that I didn't like how white converted this, and here obviously black has compensation. The knight is very strong there, tying white down to the defense of the g2 pawn. Some bishop e4 can also intensify that, but white still obviously has good winning chances thanks to these passed pawns, or one passed pawn. So black is playing to save the draw, but obviously improved his position and increased his chances. We can quickly go and check what happened in the other games, in the other match, which is the match between Germany women and Slovakia, where Brigitte Burkhardt managed to draw against the legendary Slovak Grandmaster Ljubomir Vtačnik. Let's see the final position. there was still some play left in the position, but just black decided just to call it a draw because he's worse. White has the better structure. Good night. So, okay. Jan Plachetka drew against Annette Wagner-Michel. Probably it's Michel or Michel. And let's see what happened there. Some perpetual. This was probably some sort of a wild game, but a draw. And Mira Kircek, she's actually of Macedonian origin, but she is married in Germany for a very long time. Lives there too. Not a very pleasant position against Alois Lunch. And especially because black is really dominating on the dark squares. Knight c3 is coming, or knight d4. So this is likely winning for black, but it will take some time. And Petran beat Lyubov Orlova. So let's see what happened in the end. Okay, just winning position, winning a piece, but probably was winning even earlier. So on the top boards we will have wins by the favorites. So Germany winning 3-1 against Switzerland. England 1 will beat Austria because they are already leading by 2-0, and none is playing for a win, so that will be at least a draw, so a win in the match for sure. And Slovakia beat Germany women over 65. That's on the top 3 boards in the 65 section. And a quick overview of the 50 before we take another break. Let me just move to the results here. So let's check. Okay, so white wins the queen here in the Kutirov game. Queen g6, queen b6, king e6, queen b6 win the queen. So okay, game over. So 4-0 victory for North Macedonia Alkaloid against the 5 brothers. USA is actually leading 3-0, and Shabalov is likely trying to draw this game, so that will be a win for USA. The duel of the English will be won. Actually, it is already won by England 1 because they already have 2.5 points. Adams drew, and Arkell and Davis won. So let's go to the game by Keith and see how he won after f5. Okay, king f7, rook f1, king g7, rook f2. Yeah, the idea is maybe to take on g6, push g5, or push g5 immediately, and then push through with f6. So black closed the position with g5, but now the problem is the h file, hg, and rook h1, knight f7, rook h2, king f8, rook h7, king e8, and here black resigned because what's going on? Probably just rook g7, rook h7, yeah, and knight okay, and also come to e6. So this is just basically black is stalemated. Okay, no rook g7, maybe there is knight. No, there is no knight e5, d5. So black is just stalemated. Yeah, but a very nice, typical Arkell victory in the Queen's Gambit decline, suffocating his opponent. And the Italians, Alberto David, okay, 4-0, okay, for Italy against England's women. And here the game was Alexi against Jackson. Let's see the finish of that game. Okay, so he did not give the check. No, actually he just played b7, yeah. And here black resigned. It's like I said, queen e4, rook f5 is a check, and then b8 happens on the next move, and it's game over. So crazy game. I will definitely check it out with an engine later on, and I will include it in the report, which you can read on the FIDE website. So really a crazy game here. So 4-0 for Italy, 4-0 for Macedonia. So So these were the top 4 matches, and like I said, I will be concentrating on the top boards in order to be able to look at more depth in the games, because when going over all the games, it's simply not possible to dedicate more time to understand what's going on in the games. So I will just, like I said, limit myself to the top boards and give more detailed analysis. But if you really want some game analyzed, or maybe some position you notice, just write in chat on the YouTube channel by FIDE, and I will read it, and then I will take a look at that game. So let's check the latest comments. Okay, Kevin Winter says that Mickey Adams has developed a habit of drawing first rounds versus lower rated players and then winning every game. Well, let's see if that happens. This will be tough because there are some serious opponents on board 1. But yeah, let's see what happens. And yes, I will have more guests. First day, as you noticed, it's a bit dodgy in the sense that there were technical issues, and we still need to find a good system how to get our guests, because there is a 15-minute delay of the translation, and the players finish the games, and I still don't know that for 15 minutes. So we need to find a way how to get organized in this way. So yeah, we will have more guests, rest assured. So yeah, I'll take a short break now, and when I come back, I'll just do a quick roundup of the matches and the results, and we will wrap up the commentary for the day. So I'll see you soon, quickly. Dobre, okay. Hi, welcome back. So this was a short break during which I went downstairs to the playing hall to check what's going on, and I can tell you that most of the games have finished, and then you still can't see this because of the 15-minute delay, but I will spoil a little bit the surprise for you, and I will just tell you that the position we are looking at currently by John, the game by Nunn, ended in a draw, so Nunn could not overcome the resistance of Hans Singer. So this ended in a draw. The moves will appear as they come with 15-minute delay. So the game between Bindboom and Povach was still ongoing. So this is, as you can see, it became quite sharp. You can see here. But the most important thing from the team aspect is that England won their match. And if moving to the 50 section, okay, and the position in the game between Plotkin and Shabalov actually is quite unpleasant for Shabalov, who now we see the knight being on c6, but more moves have been played, and Black actually lost the pawn on a7, and is, well, I'm no longer sure that he will manage to draw the game. So it's quite possible that Shabalov will lose this game, but it won't affect the result of the match, with the USA winning most likely 3-1. And the duel of the English teams, as mentioned, the English one already have won, having already scored 2.5 points. And the position in the game, Crocker against Ems, actually I checked now in the playing hall, and this is the correct game. So in fact it was a Queen's Gambit, except it played by John Ems. And what we have on the board is actually, well, the position here is still early from what I saw, and it's a very sharp rook endgame where Black has two connected passed pawns on the queen side, whereas White has one passed pawn on the king side. This should be winning for Black, so I am expecting Ems to win, and this would be a 3.5 to half win for the stronger English team. As for the other results, we can quickly check them. As I said, Italy beat English women 4-0. It's just easier for me to check here. Just results, even though they are not there just yet. Then Macedonia, Colovic beat Five Brothers 4-0. Sweden and Iceland, we didn't really look at that match, but there's one game going. But as you can see, Iceland is leading actually 3-0, and this game is ongoing, where Black is an exchange up, but White had this very unpleasant knight on f5. The position I saw in the playing hall is without the d5 and c3 pawns, so these were exchanged. White had a knight on f5, and Black was giving this check on g1. Yeah, so Black is trying to win, but it's not that simple because things are happening on the king side, and it's not so easy for Black, at least it wasn't, to create some passed pawn on the queen side. The other matches are Montenegro against Wales. What we have there is, let's see, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 for Montenegro, and one game ongoing, which is the game again between Adams and Pajkovic, where Black is definitely trying to win with two pieces for a rook. So again, a big victory for Montenegro. And the match between which one do we have here? Okay, so we have quite a bit, but we have Uruguay against Poland, where Poland won the match with the score 3.5 to half. And then another match we have on the live boards, which is England 2 and Scotland. That must have felt interesting, where we have results. Well, it appears that England 2 beat Scotland 4-0. And these are the results from the live boards. The other games were not on the live boards. So this is the wrap up for today. Let's check one more time the non-game if there has been any change in the position. Okay, it already, the draw appeared on the board, so let's see what happened. So it was, where did we look at? Okay, f4, king e4. Okay, this was what we were looking at. King g5, bishop c5, rook d3. So this, okay, rook d3, rook b2, rook check, king there, and now rook f3. It appears that white kind of lost the pawn. Okay, this is a surprising lapse by none. Normally you wouldn't expect white to blunder a pawn, but maybe just he allowed a bit too much with that king coming to e4 and attacking the f4 pawn. And white couldn't really organize his pieces to defend both a3 and f4. So okay, active defense by black, okay, commendable, and well, a deserved draw. Yeah. Okay, rook b5. Now just the king moves, and the rooks will be exchanged, or just it's an equal material. So a draw by John Nunn, but still convincing, well, victory at least for the English team. As we said, this game, Weinwurm against Polach, is still ongoing. So a win, and with this wrap up we will finish the live commentary for today. I really am looking forward to to tomorrow, where I hope there will be no technical issues like today. We also hope to have a live stream from the playing hall, where you can actually, we have cameras there, and you can actually see the players and the playing hall as play goes on. So thank you for being with me today. I hope to see you more in bigger numbers tomorrow. I wish you a pleasant evening, or a good day if you're watching from other parts of the planet. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.